GDP. Considering purchasing power parity, China's GDP is the largest in the world. In the first quarter of 2026, they had a growth percentage of 4.7%, where the deputy MBS head Mao Shenyang noted that the economy remained within an appropriate range and demonstrated strong resilience, supported by high-tech and equipment manufacturing, while the service sector continued to post solid growth. Middle class growth. From 2002 to 2023, China's middle income class, so neither poor nor very rich, expanded prosperously from 10 million to 336 million people, and these people have contributed to past macroeconomic growth. This expansion was made possible by the sustained growth of household incomes in the lower income class, which enabled them to graduate to the middle class. Very few live in rural areas and derive their income from wage employment or pensions based on former wages, and this is all seen as an achievement of common prosperity.
Trade balance. Since the past 10 years, its journey has been a statement of consistent growth. It proved to be one in the most difficult economic environments when COVID-19 became an epidemic. China was still able to grow its trade with a 1.7% of growth. The key for China to maintain these growth rates is the diversification of its trade elements. Before ASEAN became its largest trading partner in 2025, the USA was its main trading partner until it fell by 20%. Now ASEAN contributes with 1,065.4 billion, with an 8% growth expectation per year. Manufacturing support. In 2025, e-commerce imports and exports totaled 2.75 trillion with a growth of 69.77% compared with 2020. The key of the manufacturing support of China, aside from its cheap labor force, is the vast production they have, which competes with largest producers all around the world, given by the elimination of the intermediaries between transactions with consumers and companies, becoming the owner of 1/3 of the goods manufactured of the world. Rare minerals. According to the International Energy Agency, estimates that China accounts for about 61% of the rare earth production and 92% of their processing. Even so, it cannot be sold as an economic indicator at all. Once they control the majority of these materials, it shows the future and planification they held. An example of it is April 4th of 2025, when Beijing named export curbs that directly affect the USA in response to President Trump's new tariffs toward Chinese goods. Around 2020 and 2023, the USA obtained 70% of rare materials through China, which were in discussion once the curbs entered into function. At the moment, Scott Bessent, USA Treasury Secretary, described the restriction as an economic coercion and a global supply chain power grab, according to the BBC.
Global comparison. With the USA, the main difference is in their purchasing power parity. So, adjusted for inflation, China has the world's largest PPP basis, while the USA has less than China's raw totals. This reflects their massive physical output of goods because they produce a great amount of machinery, vehicles, and construction materials domestically, so they avoid markups and tariffs associated with importing goods. So, for example, public transit costs far fewer US dollars equivalent in a Chinese city than in New York. India. China is far more industrialized than India, where they dominate in manufacturing, heavy industry, supply chain logistics, and green technologies such as electric vehicles. Meanwhile, India is actively expanding its manufacturing footprint through incentives like Make in India, and their global economic footprint is heavily anchored in IT services, software development, pharmaceuticals, and a massive consumer market. However, their economy is roughly 4.5 to 5 times smaller than China's in nominal terms, reflecting rural income disparities with their workforce consisting of rural and semi-urban workers.
According to the Atlas Institute for International Affairs, China has a serious problem with cheap labor since human rights are not respected and there is a disregard for democracy and sovereignty. But above all, poor pay for the work done. Another fact that the page talks about is that China has complete control over its population. But is it really true? The media represent China as a repressive government, a country that controls every aspect of the population. And there is totally the opposite of what a repressive regime is. The prices of things in the market are controlled, but so the people can buy their food, clothes, basic necessities, and enjoy a full life. In my own experience, with just 13 yuan, you could have a complete meal in your hands. Transportation only costs 3 yuan. Clothes will cost as little as 80 yuan, sometimes less. Shoes at 80 yuan, beauty products at just 20 yuan. And that is something that for even the citizens themselves isn't that much money. Obviously, it depends on the city you're in, whether it's small or large, developed or less developed, because in that way, a person's salary also depends on it. The average salary of a Chinese person is 1,532 if we convert it to US dollars, and it's monthly, and compared to the United States with an average salary monthly of 6,228, it may sound like a huge difference, but as I mentioned, the cost of living even for Chinese people is cheaper. It's not like in the US that if you want to buy a coffee, it's gonna cost like $6, and in China, it's like $2 a coffee, sometimes less. It depends on
Aging challenge. Due to former policies such as the one-child policy, which was established in 1979 and didn't change until 2016, China's population is both shrinking and aging rapidly. This challenge creates workforce shortages and strains on the pension and healthcare systems.
Although it is true that the country is going through this crisis, let's be honest, which country is not having this issue right now? This isn't just a problem of China crisis. It is something that is happening in all countries due to social patterns and an apparent change in people's dynamics and priorities. China has started to implement automated technologies, machines, robots, and resource optimizations like smart cities, and a new system where people rent things like cars and housing in a mandatory and constant way to ensure the flow of money. Something like micropayments, an entire ecosystem in a single app like payments, news, videos, social networks, messaging, etc. in one single app like WeChat or Alipay. All of this is a plan that they've been working on for a long time to attack part of the crisis. It's very curious how the media says that China isn't doing anything about this crisis, and the reality is they have been working on it for several years. Probably a plan that has been like making since 2012.